Now I would like to invite a very young man here. He has also wonderful story that Christian is the son of Christian Watkins. And again, thank you very much, and give a round of applause to Christian. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm not from Vietnam, and my name is Christian Watkins. I'm 18 years old, but I am in love with Jesus, and I wasn't always. I grew up in a very Catholic home. We prayed the rosary nightly, and my parents both had their own conversions, and both were in love with God, and they gave their faith to me as a kid. And so, as a kid, we would go to Mass, and I was taught about Mary and the Eucharist and all these wonderful things. And I really loved my faith. I remember one time in class, I went to a Catholic school, but not many of the people there were Catholic at all. Only one of my fellow classmates went to Sunday Mass with me. But at this school, we were talking about random subjects, and in Medjugorje, Mary has been appearing for I don't know how many years, and my parents, part of their conversion story is from Medjugorje, and I was talking with my friends, and they didn't know what Medjugorje was. And I was shocked and amazed, and I said, "You don't know that Mama Mary's appearing in Medjugorje? You don't know all these things?" So I had a really deep love for my faith and for God since a kid. And then we moved to Sacramento. We had been living in Alameda, and it was a really hard move for me. All the friends that I had, they were too far away now for me to hang out with or talk to. And my new school was great, and I liked everyone, but I didn't have any close friendships. I didn't have anyone that I could hang out with on the weekend no matter what. And it was just really hard. It was a really hard time in my life. But then 7th grade came around, and there was a new kid that came to class. And this new kid, he had pretty weird shoes, and he looked kind of like a geek. But I knew what it was like to be new, and I loved this kid right away. I made sure that he was welcomed. I took him and I played basketball with him. I showed him around. I basically just took him under my wing because I didn't want anyone to feel like I had felt coming to that school. And we became best friends. He decided to come to the school. We would hang out every weekend. We both loved the Warriors. We both loved 2K. He was a little bit mischievous, but we had such a tight bond that I thought we would be friends forever. And that tight bond sort of loosened the summer of 8th grade year. Not only did it loosen, but I would say that it fell apart. And me and this friend didn't hang out as much as we used to. And he started hanging out with the popular crowd. And it's not that I wasn't friends with the popular crowd. I was friends with everybody in the class. I just wasn't friends like that. And so instead of hanging out with me on the weekends, he would hang out with them. And we just started hanging out less and less, talking less and less. And I felt abandoned. I felt abandoned by this kid that I had shown so much love and I loved so much, and I thought we would be friends forever no matter what. And he left me for the popular kids. So that moment, I thought the only thing that's going to make me happy, no matter what, is to be popular, to be liked, no matter what, so that I have no time when I feel alone or am alone, because I'll always have friends, I'll always have someone to talk to, I'll always have someone to be with. And so from that point on, the whole goal of my life was to be popular. And after this friend abandoned me, I became severely depressed. I would bang my head on the lunch table because I was so sad and so lost and didn't know how to relate to any of these kids. I didn't know how to relate to my friend anymore. And so this is the mindset that I have going into high school. I haven't abandoned God. I haven't turned away or done anything bad. But what's more important to God than me is popularity. That's what's going to bring me happiness, not God, nothing else. And I remember going on a retreat. My parents were worried about me. I was locking myself up in my room. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was really shutting down at that time. And they sent me on a retreat that was supposed to bring me closer to God and the Blessed Mother. And on this retreat, I met an old friend, and let's just say that this old friend was struggling a bit. He had stolen his parents' car and crashed it. He was smoking way more than he should. He had sex with a lot of different people, and he would tell me about this. But he told me everything that he did and how he didn't regret anything except having sex. That was the one thing that he regretted, that he wished he hadn't done. And so this whole retreat, instead of growing closer to God and trying to form a personal relationship with him, I hung out with this friend. And I remember there was a big event going on for this retreat. And instead of going to that big event, me and him hung out on the roof when we weren't supposed to, and just looked at the stars. And so and during that retreat, instead of deepening my relationship with God, I got a glimpse of what it was like to be popular, of what it was like to have a friend, to be the cool kid, to be someone, I thought, to be someone that mattered. And I liked it. Not only I liked it, but I loved it. So much so that when my mom greeted me after the retreat, I shoved her away because I wanted nothing to do with her. Nothing to do with her, not because she had treated me horribly as a kid, but because she was in the way of my popularity. She was weird. She was a whack. She loved God, and that wasn't for me anymore. And so I go into high school with this mindset, and all I do is I scan who's popular, who's liked, and when I set my mind to something, I succeed at it. And so little by little, I succeed in becoming popular at my high school. I have a PE class where these friends are, and I get to know these friends. I learn their humor. I learn what they like, what music they listen to, and I basically become them. I lost who I was just so that I could be popular, that I could be like that, I could hang out with these people and say that I hung out with these people, post on my Snap that I was hanging out with these people. And this worked. I became popular. I became liked. Through that PE class and through other things, I started to hang out with these people. And still at this time, I was a good student. I was a good kid still. I didn't do anything bad. I didn't really know what high school had in store for me. I had never thought about, or I'd never even been, or I didn't know what high school meant, what being popular in high school meant. But homecoming night, these same friends, after a terrible homecoming where I basically ditched my date just to hang out with these people, and after that homecoming, they invited me. They invited me to their after party, and we were freshmen, so it wasn't like a crazy after party. But for me, this was it. I had made it in to popularity. I had made it to where I wanted to go, or I had succeeded in what I wanted to succeed in life. And so I went to this after party, and it was not even a party. All we did was sit around the fire and talk, and it was pleasant. It was nice. But then they invited me to stay afterwards. They invited me to stay over, and of course I wanted to come. This was it. I had made it in so deep that they wanted to hang out with me even more. And so I hang out at night. We do the sleepover, and their mom goes to bed, and the kids start rummaging through the closets or the cabinets looking for alcohol. And this other kid brings out a can of weed, not a can, but a little package of weed. And they all start vaping. And I'm just sitting in the corner. I don't know what to do. I didn't really sign up for this. I signed up to be popular and liked. I didn't sign up for whatever this was. And I tried to pretend to sleep. I tried to pretend to sleep in the corner. And when I couldn't close my eyes anymore, I just stood there and did nothing and was kind of shocked at where I got myself into. But that didn't matter because all I wanted to do was be popular. So I started to vape, and because that's not too bad, but I hated vaping with a passion. With a passion, it always got me sick. I couldn't do any tricks. It was the worst thing in the world. I couldn't understand why people liked it or got addicted to it. And so I knew vaping wasn't for me, but I didn't care. I would still buy vape devices just so that I could be someone, or I could be part of this crowd, part of this popular place. And So then the next thing after that was weed in a THC pen. And I remember the first time that I got high was the horriblest experience, one of the horriblest experiences in my life. It was Super Bowl weekend, and one of my friends from another school, he was pressuring me to smoke. And finally I caved in and I took a hit. And I didn't know how to smoke, so I took a longer hit than I should have and started coughing. And what happened to me was I began to shiver, and then I began to become overheated. And everything became horribly scary. I was super paranoid. I thought that all the cars coming down the road were going to be their parents. So I was looking out, making sure that nobody caught me. I remember them having me order a Subway sandwich, and I was scared that the Subway lady was going to call the police on me and tell them that I was high and that I was doing something wrong. And it was so horrible, such a horrible experience for me. Just the way that it made me feel, what happened, that I called out to Mary in that moment and I said, Mom Mary, I'll never do this again, never, if you just get me out of this one moment. And I got out of the moment, but I forgot that promise. And I kept on going. And my two best friends got their own device, and we started smoking every weekend. And I began to love smoking weed. With vaping, always horrible to me, gross and disgusting. Weed made me feel great. I liked the taste. I liked everything about it. And so I would start coming over to my friends on the weekends, not necessarily to hang out with them, but to smoke. And that's how I sort of ended my freshman year. And during that year, during that summer at least, I was signed up to work as a camp counselor at a youth camp. And at this youth camp, I wasn't required to hang out with those friends anymore. And at that point, I really didn't like where I was at. My grades weren't good. I had no clue how I had fallen in so deep. And I really wanted to change my life. We had also adopted my little brother. His name's Micah. He's the cutest thing in the world. And for his sake, I wanted to change. I wanted to be a better person. I wanted to be a good brother, a good example. But and during that summer, I didn't hang out with these friends. I didn't hang out because I could use the excuse that I had work and that I was too busy that day. And so that whole summer was great. I felt free. Of course, I wasn't trying to choose God, but I was free from those friends and free from that problem. And so after that, sophomore year comes around, and my two best friends abandoned me again. Because I hadn't hanged out with them so much during the school year, they stopped, for whatever reason, hanging out with me. One even became hostile. Not in a way that, I'm going to punch you, but just every time we would have a conversation, he would put me down. And so the only other friend group that I had was the druggies. That was the only other popular friend group that I had. And remember, all I wanted to do was be popular. All I wanted to do was be liked. And so a new friend comes from another school who was addicted to smoking weed. And he he convinces me to get my own device. And so I get my own device, and I'm a very smart kid. My parents know nothing about any of this. They've got no clue what I've been doing. They were worried about me, but they would send me to parties because I would be so anxious going to these parties. And they would encourage me, oh, don't worry about it. You'll be just fine. But they would take me to these parties where I would smoke, not realizing that I was causing my own anxiety. But they were just trying to help. But they had no clue. They had no clue what was wrong with me. I'd always been a good kid. I still was a quote unquote good kid. I was just a jerk. But I got my own device, and I started smoking with my friends pretty much all of the time. It started little by little, just with, oh, only smoke on the weekends, it's no biggie, you've got everything done. Then it became, all right, you don't have any homework and your friend's calling you, you're not doing it alone, doesn't matter. And slowly but surely it became so bad that I would just, whenever I had class, and at least if it wasn't a test, I would just smoke in the bathrooms with my friends. And that's basically where I got before I thought to myself, what the heck is wrong with you? But during this time, when I was doing all this, I had so much hatred in my heart. I would give people what are called death stares. I don't know if you've ever gotten a death stare from someone, but these stares were filled with so much rage and so much anger that I would make people cower in fear. And the people that got these death stares the most often were my parents and my brothers. And I had so much rage and anger and just turmoil in my heart that I remember one day sitting at the stairs, talking to my parents. They were worried about me. And I told them to their face how much I hated them, how much I didn't want to be a part of their lives, how much I loathed them. And during this time, I hated God with a passion. With a passion. I knew that God exists, but I wished that he didn't exist so that I could do whatever I wanted with no consequence. I wish that we had come from apes and that we would just go into the earth and there was no heaven, no hell, no purgatory. I wish there was nothing. I wanted nothing to do with God. I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do. And I forgot to mention, during this time, I also started struggling with pornography. That same friend who had abandoned me in middle school, now that I was popular, came back into my life, and thinking that I had already been introduced to pornography, introduced it to me. And so this became another big part of my life. And so through that and with that, there was these girls, or one girl in particular. And for me, I don't know if you guys know what mortal sin is, but mortal sin is complete separation from God. And by my parents, I'd been drilled that having sex before marriage was a mortal sin. Not only for me, but for that other person. That there was more to it than just my feelings, my passion. But for me, this was the hardest thing to let go. This is why I hated God so much. This was the biggest fight, I would say, of my life. Not having sex, not taking that step. And so through this whole time, I hated life. I hated myself. I hated my family. I even hated my friends, some of them, because they would do stupid stuff that I didn't understand, like stealing soap dispensers from McDonald's or making life miserable for the Taco Bell employees. I had no idea where I was, what I was doing, what I wanted from life. I was wrestling almost daily with not having sex. And it was winter break, and there was a New Year's party. And I went to this party, and I was friends with everyone that I wanted to be friends with. I was feeling good. I was drunk and high at the same time. I was living my best life. I had no worries. Everybody liked me. I liked everybody there. But I was just so empty and miserable. And I wanted out. I wanted to change. I wanted something different. I wanted something more. I wanted something that wasn't just going to take everything away from me. I wanted to stop fighting. I just wanted to rest, feel love, feel something. And so after that, I went to my mom, or not yet. She had been doing a show with her co-host on the effects of weed. And they had gotten a little booklet on just 50 reasons why smoking marijuana was bad from like a biblical perspective. And I remember randomly opening this book and reading a quote that really struck me deep, because I had no idea what I was doing was like a mortal sin, was putting me in danger. I thought that I was just having fun and that after college, I would stop, get my life back together, and it would be just fine. But after reading that book, reading that quote, it was, I think, from Romans, talking about not using spells and potions to distort your mind, have a sober mind. It really affected me, and I really wanted to change. And so I told my mom that I had something to tell her, but I wasn't ready yet. And after that, my mom knew that something was up. She took me to a prayer room, and she basically asked me yes or no questions. And I just shook or nodded my head, and I pretty much told her everything that night. And that night, I felt so free and so relieved. She knew that I had to get out of my school. She knew that I had to change, and she was willing to make anything work for me to do that. And so that was that. But the next day, when I told my friends what I had done, they were like, "You idiot. You told your parents everything, and you're the only one that has never gotten caught, never, they suspect nothing, and you told them everything for what? For what reason?" And I began to doubt why I had given everything up. Because up until that point, most of my life I had been living for this popularity, living to please people, living to get something. And I began to doubt, and I became really sad, and I thought that I was just an idiot for telling my parents what I had done. And that was the way that I felt for a couple of days. And I remember there was a certain day when I had been watching YouTube, just trying to drown out all these feelings. My mom had given me her book to read because she thought it would help me. And one, it's a holy book, so I didn't want to read it. And two, it's from my mom, so I really didn't want to read it. But it was like 2 a.m. I had already tried everything. I couldn't get to bed. When you watch YouTube that late, it just doesn't work. You can't just go to bed. So I thought, what the heck? I'll pick up this book and read it. And I read one word, and I was overtaken by the Spirit. I felt so alive. I felt more than alive. For the first time in my life, I felt so much peace, so much love, so much in my heart that I ran downstairs. I barged into my mom's office, and I started shouting and yelling how alive I felt, how in love I was, how Jesus had saved me, and how thankful I was. And I started prophesying about what I would do, how I would help with Queen of Peace Media, doing a podcast, helping the youth. And I would say one of my friends' names, and I would give him a sidestep, saying that was my old life, that was behind me. And it was the best moment of my life. Still is the best moment of my life. I've never had a moment like it. It was the first time that I met God, and I met something more than myself, and I never wanted to let go. And so after that, it's been a daily process. I've slipped up many times, and it's been hard a lot, but through it all, I've been getting steadily closer to God, closer to my family. I now love my family. I love my life. I love my brothers. I love my mom, my dad. I just have peace, love, inspiration, purpose. I was missing that whole time. Any purpose, any drive, any vision. There was nothing in my life. Nothing that could satisfy me. Nothing, basically nothing. Nothing. No purpose. Everything was black, dreak, horrible. But now my life was filled with purpose, love, hope, everything good, everything noble. And through it all, I began to really discern the priesthood. And this was a big struggle for me because I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a big family that I could love, that I could shower with my love, that I could show how much I cared about them, share the faith with them, watch them grow, watch them learn, watch them love. I wanted to be that for someone. And I was really struggling with this because all these little old church ladies kept coming up to me after Mass and grabbing my cheeks and saying, "Oh, you're going to be a priest. Oh." And this was hard for me because not that I didn't want to be a priest and I wasn't open to it, but I wanted to be a dad. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to have 10 kids, my poor wife. But I wanted to give to them in particular. And I was really struggling with this. And I remember one day I was lying on my floor of the floor of my room, just looking up. Well, it was at the ceiling, but I imagine I was looking up at God and asking him why. You know, I felt like I might be called to the priesthood. But I said, and I know that when we follow God's will, he wants nothing but happiness for us, nothing but love, nothing but goodness. He doesn't want our ill will. And I asked him, why? Why me? And he showed me that as a priest, I would be able to be the father of way more than just 10 kids. That I would have spiritual sons and daughters that I could care for, look out for, pray for, watch them learn, watch them love, and watch them grow. Not only, taller, but I could watch them grow spiritually, and I could be a big part of that. And so after that, day by day, this desire in my heart grew to be a priest. And I'm not a priest yet, and I might be married, who knows? But that's where God has taken me so far, all the way up until now where I'm standing talking to you guys. And so that's my story so far. It's not over. There's more to it. This is a short version. But I'll just leave you with that. God loves you. He saved me. He can save you no matter what. You could be better than me, worse than me. It doesn't matter. He's right there. He's no more present there than he was 2,000 years ago. It's the same Jesus, the same God, the same person who did miracles. He's right there, and he loves you. He saved me. He can save you. It doesn't matter. All he wants to do is love you. All he wants to do is fill you with his love, to give you peace, purpose, to give you something. All you got to do is ask and be open. He's there for you. I love you. He loves you. And, yep.